For having a couch here, I really don't use it as much as I should. I mean, I literally didn't even know I had this view until this morning, but look at this. Like, that's nice. I've never really just sort of taken it in. Anyway. On to the news. Now I guess this is just like completely not news to anyone because I've told a few people over the past day and literally no one seems surprised. Like it seems like everyone just assumed this was a thing before I told them, and so what I told them was like, guys, my life just changed. They're like, did it? It was just, sorry, I slept too long and so now I'm groggy. But God, so Colin Williams, you can look him up, so Colin Williams is a very long story as far as like my dynamic with him. And it starts way before he knew I existed, but basically my junior year in high school, I was dead set on orchestral trombone as my career path. Well, I was kind of dead set my freshman year after I figured out that even existed. But then junior year was when I had breakthroughs and I started landing like principal all-state spots and really understanding that I was competitive. So in that same year, I discovered like orchestral excerpt videos, and the premier YouTube specials were Southeast Trombone Symposium. And at the time, Colin Williams was playing principal in Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, and so he was playing principal on all of the excerpt videos, well, most of the excerpts. It was just like so beautiful, but also so like Maulery, if you understand what that means. And so I started playing these excerpts, and like that sort of led me into loud playing, and I was like, oh, I can do this and it's not just like really bad. Okay. And so that opened up more opportunities for playing in orchestra stuff. And then I had an embouchure injury, and that basically set me back to square one, and I had to relearn how to play. But I had to sort of do it on my own because there wasn't a lot of resources as far as human resources or informational resources around Tallahassee. The nearest like actual big city was 4 hours away, like 5 hours for Orlando, 5 hours for Atlanta, 3 hours for Jacksonville, 3 hours for Pensacola. It was the ultimate no man's land, especially for like music and stuff. So in comes the gap year, which you've seen a couple of those videos. I tried to start a vlog then, but it didn't go very well. But I took that gap year principally to practice and prepare for more auditions the next year to get my face sorted out so I could play properly. And within that year, I had 2 lessons with Colin. In August of 2016, I had a lesson in the New York Phil Bass Room with Colin, and the amount of things that I got from that one lesson, because I recorded it, like was still serving me by the time December came around and I had my second lesson with him. Had the second lesson, and it was really interesting because I was sitting in that room, and at one point, every single principal brass player in the New York Philharmonic had walked in on my lesson or just been sitting. Chris Martin came in, Phil Myers was just chilling in the back the entire time. Joe came in while I was trying to play lip slurs and like eating shit the whole time.
Alright guys, I hate to leave in the middle of that.
It was really, really intense in that lesson, but it was like another affirmation that Colin was like the most effective teacher that I had ever worked with. And once again, I had taken what I got from that lesson and used that recording and benchmarks and checkpoint myself for like the next 6 months and was still picking up on stuff. So fast forward to when I didn't get to any of my schools again, I applied to 10, auditioned to 3, and got into 0. Again, 2 years in a row. And that was a pretty awful moment. That sucked a lot. But I had Colin's number, and I had been told briefly by one of his friends that he taught at Montclair. I texted him sort of in like a defeated, not even panic, but just like last resort, like, why not see what happens if I send this message? And I said, hey, how's it going? I just got all my results, and I was wondering if you had any openings at this school, Montclair. And I didn't hear anything back for about 4 or 5 days. And I assumed like, oh, they're full, or like they don't want me, or like, wow, I auditioned that badly at Manhattan. Like, there was all this stuff going through my mind. And on the 5th or 6th day, he basically sent me a text that said, hey, sorry for the wait. I talked to the associate director of the music school. We waived your audition. We got you an in-state tuition waiver, and all you have to do is click apply. So I clicked apply and committed to Montclair State sight unseen. I'd literally never heard of ever seen or heard of this school. Hadn't looked at a picture of the campus and was like, okay, committed to Montclair. Showed up to Montclair and was like, wow, this is actually really cool. I didn't even know where it was. I thought it could have been hours away from where like I am now. I didn't know it was 20 minutes from the city, literally in between Manhattan and my Korean grandparents that I had just met a year prior. Like it's directly in the middle. Colin's basically been like the ultimate saving grace in every way for my trombone playing and my entire classical music journey. His videos online kept me enthusiastic when I had the biggest playing setback probably I will ever have. His direction was so effective that within an hour and a half, I was given 6 months of runway for like new things to figure out twice. And then he took me under his wing, and like, he's the reason why all this is happening. Colin is the only reason why I have the opportunity and the resources to pursue Sprackle, to be around New York City. So you can kind of understand why I was a bit terrified to set up a meeting with him and say, hey, I'm almost definitely taking another year off, and I might not be coming back after that, depending on how that year goes. That's what the meeting was about. And his response was unexpected, to say the least. I was explaining everything, and I explained that I talked to Gina, who is the academic advisor, coordinator within the music school. And she had basically told me that Montclair's policy on leaves of absences, you could take a year off, and you just fill out a leave of absence form. You withdraw from all the classes if you've already signed up for them. And when you come back, it is like nothing ever happened. For that 1 year limit, you can come back. You don't have to re-audition. You don't have to fill out anything. I didn't have any scholarship at stake, so that didn't matter. And it's literally as if you stepped back into the semester that you took off. So I told him that was pretty much going to happen. Like it seems pretty much like that's the trajectory that's going to happen, and there's no consequences. So I felt like at least that was warranted. And also, like, playing brass is very kind of temperamental when you're figuring out embouchure issues. And is this in focus? Oh God. And taking time off of brass playing is a very, very tricky thing. But over the last semester, I had not had time to play more than 3 days a week. And I was still playing better than I had before I came here, and arguably better than I had ever. Except for like tying speed, things like that you have to drill was getting a little sloppy. But I mean, embouchure ability, the thing that I pursued Colin for, was better than ever. And then I took the trip to Florida, took 3 weeks off of playing almost entirely. I think I played 3 days in 3 weeks. And I still came back and kind of evaluated after playing for the next day that I was still, after that amount of time off, more consistent, and my playing was more predictable than when I started my first semester at Montclair. So I think the infrastructure's set, which is why I wasn't too concerned about the time off. But all to say, Colin kind of blindsided me, because we're sitting in this coffee shop. It's Cafe Booney in Washington Heights. And I tell him about this, and I ask him about like how conservatories respond to older people auditioning in as freshmen. And he said it's basically if you don't piss away all those years, if it's not like you quit school and took all that time off to like go surf. Nothing against surfing, but like if it was because you're trying to do something and it shows you have some drive, then it doesn't really matter as long as they know the backstory and you still play well. So that was cleared up. But then he at one point just kind of like had me take a breath and step back and was like, I think this is something that you have to do. If you don't do this, I can tell just by like listening to how you talk about it and listening to all the things you're talking about, watching the stuff that you've been doing and the people that you've been meeting, this is something that like you seem to have a skill for in some level and definitely a drive for. If you pursue music at the direct sacrifice of this now, you're gonna regret it at some point and be pissed off about it. And he was right. Essentially what was sort of unveiled with this meeting was that the only option that didn't sacrifice something was to defer the music studies. Because if I pursued the music studies right now, hard 100%, the only way that you're actually ever going to get anything out of it, that would snuff out the startup, this entrepreneurial phase of mine, if it is a phase, this one opportunity that would unequivocally die. And in 5 years' time, it would probably already exist. If I were to pursue the startup, the music's always going to be there. It is the only option where you don't lose an opportunity. And so therefore it is the only option. This next year I will not be signing up for classes. And Sprackle is the sole concern of mine. This is a really weird feeling. I'm so used to duality of like having to make sure that I'm efficient between my context changes and dealing with like 2 worlds or 3 worlds equally distributed in focus, and all of them are supposed to demand one full person's focus the entire time. Now film, the only thing left is Summit. The music will be there for when I'm ready to come back to it, and Sprackle is what's left. And that's very exciting. I should call Will today to make sure he's still alive after the all-nighter, but I'm excited. Like, I have a clear goal. It's not even that I had it, because I mentioned on Instagram, I posted on my Instagram stories that the breakthrough is that now I have a goal. That is not the breakthrough at all. I realized, like, as I watched that again a few hours later, the breakthrough is now that I've gotten rid of or like backburnered other goals so that I may pursue one, and I know that that one is the one that is foremost, because all the rest of them were all equally in front of my face before. I was like, oh God, I have one thing to focus on. It's amazing, just focusing on a single thing. Crazy. I don't know, why don't people think of this? What's absurd? Also, I broke my camera. But super glue can fix it.